It looks like we are recording. I'm seeing the attendee count start to tick up, so hopefully that doesn't make anybody nervous. But really excited and appreciative that you all are joining us today. Whether you're here as this is being recorded or whether you're watching this in the future, thanks, and we're glad to have you here. I'm especially appreciative of the four folks who you see on your screen and who you'll be hearing a lot more from over the course of the next hour. So just to introduce myself, I'm Jon Roberts. I'm a Senior Director with Luminary Labs. I oversee our portfolios in scientific discovery and infrastructure. I could tell you more about that, but mostly the thing I'm excited about with my work is getting to learn from and work with the four people who are assembled here. So they'll introduce themselves in a minute, but these four are senior associates on our strategy team who I've heard described variously as the glue, the problem solvers. They're the people who our clients often turn to first and who I and other leaders on the team turn to for advice, insight on the things that we don't know. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of great insights to share about both the work that we do and what life is like day to day for them. Just to cover a few logistical details. So today's session is being recorded, as you're all aware. We do have a pretty full complement of questions for today. So I will probably monopolize the time and exercise that prerogative, but we do have a Q&A box open. So encourage everybody who's listening in today to add your questions to that Q&A box, and we will capture those for future AMAs and events like this. So without further ado, I want to start hearing from our panelists today. So I'll ask each of you to, by way of introduction, share a little bit about what you were doing before Luminary Labs, because you all have, I think, really impressive backgrounds before you became consultants at Luminary Labs. And what is one thing, I won't say the most important thing, but I'll say one thing that brought you to Luminary Labs. And the first person I'm seeing on my screen here is Lisa. So Lisa, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa-Marie Pierre. I am a Senior Open Innovation Associate here at Luminary Labs. And prior to being here, I worked at Bronx Community College in their Division of Continuing Education and Workforce Development. And before that, I was in my PhD program where I focused on urban economic geography. Everything that I do, I feel, is based on this idea of people, place, and change. And so I'm really interested in how all of those intersect. And so when I saw Luminary Labs, I was really excited because I felt like it combined everything that I've been interested in and everything that I've studied. And I really was interested in the idea of being able to help people solve really big problems and do it in an intentional way.
Thanks, Lisa. And I've started on Lisa's thesis. It's a pretty long document, so I'm not too far through it, but it's some pretty fascinating work. I love nerding out with everybody. Speaking of nerding out, next up, Logan, would love to hear a little bit about your story.
Thanks, appreciate the nerd cred. Hi, everybody. My name is Logan Cummings. Prior to joining Luminary Labs, my career was mostly in the nonprofit sector. Early in my career was focused on human rights advocacy, specifically working with a lot of organizations doing advocacy at the UN here in New York. Found that I really enjoyed the work, but there was something missing from my pragmatic personality. I was a little bit pie in the sky and abstract. So got my first taste of client services work through a grad school capstone, working with a client on their refugee resettlement monitoring and evaluation, which was a nice combination of getting exposure to a new sector, as well as dipping my toes into the consulting toolkit and skill set. So I, from there, went on to join the International Rescue Committee, a humanitarian aid nonprofit. Worked in their internal strategy department for about 3 years, focused on mostly kind of operational strategy consulting. Again, very interesting. I think I picked up a lot of the tools and the analytical skill sets there, but wanted to get a bit closer to the programmatic work. So then I transitioned to the research and innovation department there. So kind of matched my strategy skill set with some more innovation work. Worked there for about 3 more years. And then due to the pandemic and kind of the nature of the work changing, was looking for a new opportunity to work on still really big thorny problems, but a bit closer to home. And so Luminary Labs was a nice combination of getting to work on really interesting problems, client services, and working with a really great team. The culture, at least what I thought was going to be the culture and was the case on through conversations in the website, really drew me to the team as well.
I'm glad we lived up to our expectations too. I think we do set a high bar in our content. So Monica, I think you might be one of our more tenured folks on today. So what's your story?
I'm Monica Tinyo. I'm also a senior associate. Prior to Luminary Labs, I worked in innovation in a lot of different capacities. I've worked at tech startups, venture firms, moonshot design studios, as well as a lot of like social, local, community-based organization work, prominently early stage nonprofits and other CBOs. I was introduced to Luminary Labs actually a few years ago, and I went through the website, read everything, and was like, yep, I'm gonna work there. I love this place. And I sent in an application. There wasn't any openings, and ended up freelancing. And I think what I found that I really wanted was there's a combination of strategy and execution of like not only thinking about how we should do this work, but then actually putting it into practice and seeing what works and what doesn't, and how to be agile. And what really drew me to working at Luminary Labs full time was that strategy and execution, and also like direct client services. I really love the structure and the collaboration, and it's really unique for a senior associate to really be that first point of contact for clients. And you're still very much supported by the rest of the team. But that's something that worked really well, and like is a skill set that I'm growing. So very, very happy to be here and love the team.
Wonderful. And last but far from least, Natalia, would love to hear your story.
Hi, my name is Natalia Allen, and I started working at Luminary Labs in March of 2022 of this year. My background is in special education administration, and really a variety of roles within charter schools in New York City. I originally found out about Luminary Labs through my alumni network from undergrad, and I immediately became really fascinated with the company and the kind of work it was doing. It really was different from what I thought consulting was. And upon finding out more about the projects, I was just really interested in the topic, and so I applied. And luckily, I'm here, and I've been really lucky to work with some amazing people, including but not limited to the people on this panel, and also work with some really cool projects, and really getting to zoom out on the education landscape, which is where I've been working on mostly. And I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know, even from having been in the classroom for a while.
Yeah, we're also very lucky. And I think that's a really interesting point that you raised, Natalia, in terms of how I heard you even just do this yesterday on a call where you connected kind of the dots between your background in the classroom and how that now translates into the work that you're doing. And I think from a different angle, but still incredibly important. And I think valuable to have that perspective to inform our approach. And to that point, we do at Luminary Labs kind of love to get specific and get tangible. So to get a little more tangible, would love to hear from a couple of you, what you're working on, and a particularly interesting way that it connects kind of spontaneously or serendipitously even with your pre-Luminary Labs background. Lisa, I'll circle back to you on that, because I think there's some interesting connections and differences in the stuff that we're working on together.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to work on our external client-facing projects, but also internal projects. And so I've worked on, currently I'm on CT CyberNet, which is a professional development program for teachers to give them the opportunities to learn cybersecurity and then pass it on along to their teachers. And so that falls under our future of education focus area. And so that's been really interesting to work on that, because even though I don't have a cybersecurity background, I'm not a hacker or anything like that, I think just the topic area, because what we're trying to do is build an ecosystem and a network. And so I was able to connect my background in the sense of doing the research that needed to be done was very similar to research that I did while I was in my doctorate program. And also connecting and building ecosystems was something that I did when I was at Bronx Community College. I worked on a lot of cross-sector partnerships, including the Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative. And that was something that was about building a network and an ecosystem. And so it's been really interesting to see how all of our projects connect back to my learning or work experience or community experience. For example, we worked on the Build Back Better challenge with the Economic Development Agency, and that was all about building clusters and building economies around different areas of points of interest and topics and industries. And it was just really interesting because as an urban economic geographer, in economic geography, I learned a lot about clusters and building ecosystems. And it was great to see something that I learned in the books and in theory, and actually see it being applied and being able to kind of connect like this theoretical aspect with some of the touch points that the people had on the ground. And then the last thing that I've been working on, we had a work-based learning program that we started, and that was just so fun to work with high school students. And I think that just connected and reminded me of my time at Bronx Community College, working in a continuing education department where it was important to give students the opportunity to learn more. So it's been really interesting to see how everything is connecting together.
Wonderful. You're bringing back some fond memories that I think there's a lot of, it's amazing to me, even in a short amount of time, how many interesting things we get done. Related to that, I guess, Logan, I'll come back to you because you've also, I think, done a lot of interesting work in your time with us so far. And I think you also touched on this a bit, some of the skills, and when we say quote unquote consulting, what does that really mean? I think both drawing on some skills that you had and developing some new ones in new subject areas. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, so my main project right now is with a large education philanthropic donor on a discovery process around the far future of school and learning. So their basic question is, what will school look like in 20 years? What are the risks and opportunities? And then how do we start investing today to help de-risk some of the challenges, but also start building towards some of the opportunities? So it's a very large, kind of audacious, bold project, which is really exciting, but also a bit terrifying in scope in the best ways. So the project is really around identifying opportunities and finding the strategic fit today to start building towards that. It's actually a really nice kind of transition from my last job, where I was working internally in the innovation department of a large nonprofit. A lot of what I did there was this kind of opportunity scoping of, if we're going to focus on research and innovation over the next 10 years, where do we want to place our bets today? So it's a lot of research, a lot of talking to subject matter experts, understanding the field and the sector, and where there's really these like nice opportunities to invest, where there's kind of a niche that we can carve out. The big difference is working for a philanthropy versus internally to an NGO. I will say it's really nice working for a philanthropy because they have the money. So getting a seat at that table to help them decide where to place their bets is a really exciting, kind of impactful position to be in. And I think the other thing to reflect on is, it's nice to be able to go deep in different types of subject matter. I'm definitely a generalist by training, but to kind of go between projects and dive deep in these different subject matter areas. I was working on infrastructure before, and now working on education. Before, I had some experience in education, but again, in the kind of humanitarian field. The innovations that we're looking at there are reliant on very different technologies in developing countries than we can think of in the next 20 years in the US. So that opportunity to think really big and bold has been a really great opportunity.
I love that. And I think moving a bit past, I think what, because we are all, I think, big thinkers, but like, I do also like to know what it feels like kind of to be a senior associate, to do the work that you're doing. I'd love to hear just like, what are some specific things that, you've done recently day to day that you really enjoy? Like, who are you doing those things with? Like, what does the collaboration feel like? Natalia, I'll turn that to you first, because you've been doing a lot of collaborating the past few weeks. So would love to hear it.
So some of the things that I do day to day, I think it really varies. When I was first finding out about Luminary Labs and sort of getting to know everyone, I was like, what do you do every day? And everyone was like, it varies, and that's the truth. But there's a lot of meetings with some really, really cool people that are involved in organizations that I was very familiar with before, but now I sort of get an insight on them. So a current project, one of the current projects that I'm working on is the IES Learning Acceleration Challenges, which recently just closed its phase 1 submissions period. For that, we get to work with the Institute of Education Sciences, which is a research branch of the US Department of Education. And we've done a lot of work with them, and just seeing the kind of work that they've gotten to do is pretty incredible. And through them, and for the judging panel that we are collaborating with for the to select the submissions that are moving on to the next phase, are involving some really, really big names in education, people who have a lot of publications, who have professors all across the country who have had really impactful studies across the field of education. And I think something that is particularly cool for me is that we're working with NWEA, which is a organization that creates a test called the MAP growth test that I actually used as an educator to track student growth. And now I get to work with the people who create these tests and understand how they're created and how they actually are, how the mechanisms work in order to measure growth. And it's data that I've been using for years. And with all of those people and all that input, we have been able to create a really cool project. So day to day, I think it's just really cool to get to talk to all these people and get to know more about them. I sometimes wish I could just sit down and ask them, just like, tell me more like about your thoughts in education in general, because it's pretty incredible, the people that I've gotten to talk to through my work on this project alone.
Yeah, I think that's also, it's so fortunate, like some of the people that we get to nerd out with day to day. And I think that really hits on it. And I think that looks different across the life cycles of our projects. And I know, those who are listening in are probably pretty familiar with what we do, but, you all are the most familiar with it. And I think we talk about open innovation as a lot of our work, and we do a wide range of things, in terms of more traditional strategy development, all the way to kind of producing challenges, prize competitions, non-traditional incentive mechanisms that really bring different voices to the table and help the best ideas advance when the way that the world is set up today, they might not otherwise. And Monica, you're actually working on, I think, 2 very interesting open innovation challenges at very different stages. So I won't ask you to give us the download on all of them, because I think there's a lot of that's publicly available, but I will give you a chance, one, to plug one of your open programs, but more importantly, what aspects or what parts of that challenge and open innovation life cycle really resonate with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I'll say that the project that we launched publicly about a month ago is the Future Finder Challenge. And so shout out to that challenge. We have submissions open till December 15th. It's all around reimagining career navigation for adult learners. And so if you are an educator or an ed tech solver, please look at the website. And so with that project, I would say, when I think about open innovation, for me, it's really about co-creation and really thinking about like, what is the way that we can bring fresh perspectives and different methodologies to problems that haven't been solved. And what that really means is bringing together a lot of people from different sectors or different levels, whether it be like local and national or adjacent fields in a current field, and bringing everyone together and thinking about like, how can we field build and community build in like an emerging ecosystem or dormant ecosystem? Like, how can we put life into something that hasn't had life for whatever reason? And so the Future Finder Challenge in particular has been a project that I personally love, going from strategy to execution. And so this is really my sweet spot. I love being able to be planning something for a year and talking to all of these subject matter experts and our clients and really collaborating and drilling down into like, what are the details, what are the vision, all of that strategy work alongside so many subject matter experts, and then putting that out in the world and seeing what happens. And so I think that we've gotten like a really, really great response from the adult education community as well as the ed tech community and workforce development sector. And so it's been really exciting to see how this unfolds and what impact it makes. We are very early on in the project. This project will go on for another 2 years, at least till 2024. And so we're still in the infancy, but it's been very exciting to have that launch and just see what that looks like. The other project I work on is the Rural Tech Project, which is in a different phase and is also a long project. Right now, for the both of them are challenges. This challenge has 5 finalists and a 2-year phase between the finalists being selected and a winner being selected. And so they're piloting career and technical education programs in rural communities. And it's been really interesting to work with them as well as our client and other subject matter experts to hone technical assistance. And by that, I mean just the support and resources we can provide to finalists for this 2-year period, and seeing how they pilot and then refine their programs, and what it means to support that practice has been very interesting.
And I wanted to turn, Lisa, maybe to you, because I think is an interesting contrast that the work that you described, whether it's our teacher professional development with CTE CyberNet, providing technical assistance to finalists in the Build Back Better regional challenge, I think those feel very different. But I think one, like, share something with the projects Monica just described in finding non-traditional solutions and incentivizing less traditional ways of solving problems that are really important and under-addressed. And in that sense, I think of them as open innovation in their own right. So in the context of the work that you've done that maybe looks different on the surface, how would you describe open innovation?
Well, I believe open innovation is not anything new. We've been doing it for a long time as different societies. But I think traditionally, in the sense, people have done what we call closed innovation. And so they would try to solve problems in-house in their own organization with the teams that they have. And so that might work, but the limitation is that the smartest people may be outside of your organization, or the person who actually can solve the problem could be outside of your organization. So what became a little bit more mainstream was the open innovation model, which is, I guess, asking people or curating a group of people outside of your organization to help solve a problem. And so that's something that I think is just interesting about open innovation, is that innovation is about making change and solving problems and coming up with interesting solutions that are outside the box. And when you are able to open it up to anyone, it could be a community resident, it could be a teacher, it could be an organization, it could be a team, and give them incentives, whether that's through monetary incentives or recognition, then we could really come up with solving problems. And that could look like in different ways, like crowdsourcing, accelerators, challenges, competitions. And that's like a lot of what we've been doing. So while everything might look different, the common thread is that it's different people coming together to solve us a problem and come up with a solution that can make an impact. And so I just think that it's a really great way to move forward in the future, especially there's a lot of people who have expertise all over the place. And if we start to pull in our resources, we could really make a big impact in this world. And so I think all of our work is really exciting because of that common thread of working together.
Yeah, I think that's so well said, and kind of something that even inspires me about, I think, the work that we do. And I think on the topic of working together, I think a really important aspect of how Luminary Labs works is not just the projects, the topics that we work on, but how we do that together. So I'm switching gears maybe a little bit more to kind of growth and development at Luminary Labs. That's, I think, something that's a real priority. I think something we take a very intentional approach to, and something I feel a lot of personal responsibility for, but I think also is really core to our values as a company. And I think one way I like to look at that is sort of moments when people either give or ask for or receive help. We're sort of a team of helpers. That I think that's one of the things I admire most about our whole team. So I guess just again, in the spirit of specificity rather than your show don't tell, would love to hear if there's a moment, a memorable moment of giving or receiving help in the work that you've done so far. Logan, I'll turn that maybe over to you first.
Yeah, I mean, this is top of mind because I'm in the midst of it right now. But I think one area that I think not necessarily surprised me, but I really valued how much Luminary Labs invested in it, was in our lovely colleague, Jessica, specifically around writing and really connecting the dots. As a senior associate, we're always kind of in the weeds with the research and drafting, synthesizing the insights and drafting the reports. And sometimes it's easy to get really kind of blind to the own perspective in the work. And so it's really helpful to have internal capacity to, I mean, number one, just help us write better and write more strongly and in a persuasive manner, but also have the more global perspective and really connect the dots, both within the work and also to other projects. So having that resource internally that can say, hey, we did a report on this 2 months ago for this other project. There's some really great insights that you can kind of port in here. And so that's been really helpful, both when you join and are onboarded. There's a writing accelerator, which I think we can all agree is like just a tremendous benefit and really helps you push your writing in new and interesting ways. But then that ongoing support to kind of take a new perspective of the writing, make it more narrative, make it really kind of sing in how it comes together has been hugely helpful for me, and something that I haven't felt in previous positions. I've normally written something and then you send it for reviews and kind of line edits. But the level of just like deep responsive feedback on kind of everything that we produce has been just really transformative.
I'm also waiting for the remedial writing accelerator. I've been asking for that for years, and I know Jessica is very busy, so I will give her a pass on that. But Natalia, I would love to hear maybe a similar answer, but what's a memorable kind of moment of giving and for getting help?
So, I mean, the writing accelerator was definitely something that was top of mind as well. Like, I think improving my client communications was something that I really wanted to do, and the writing accelerator was very helpful. But in order to expand on the answer a little bit, I think that there's also just like a lot of small moments of asking for help where everyone has been so enthusiastic to help. And I don't ever feel scared to say that I don't know how to do something. So one example is I was really struggling to find someone's email. And I was just really down like a LinkedIn and Google rabbit hole. And as soon as I asked for help, like Logan actually jumped up immediately and said, like, here's, you know, the tool that you use to find that. And that's true for everything. For any sort of new thing that I have encountered, everything from like how to arrange things on a Google slide to making sure that client deliverables are very carefully proofread and are being sent out correctly, to even making sure that we are communicating clearly. I think there is just so much support. I've like never felt like an island. And that's something that I was really looking for in a new role. And I felt like I found it. Like I've never felt alone in any of the projects that I've done.
Sorry, I think I have something in my eye. I might have to go off video, but no, I think it's really inspiring, and I think what excites me is not just thinking about and having been someone who's seen everyone's growth on this call in the time that you've been on our team, but also thinking ahead at the growth to come. So this is one I'd love to hear from each of you if you're willing to share. But just thinking about the year ahead, what's something that really excites you about your growth, or is there a particular area that you are especially inspired to learn or develop, and like how do you plan to do that? Monica, I'll put you on the spot for that one first, but again, please others feel free to jump in after that.
Yeah, so I think that I will echo what Natalia said about just it feeling safe and open to ask for help. And I think that that actually that is the thing that makes me excited about growth in next year, is that I can be open about the things that I'm like developing, and people will not only remember that, but also encourage and support in whatever ways that they can. And so I would say that I also have, you know, my goals are around like client services skills, whether that be verbal or written, but that specific skill set. And I would say John and Eden especially have really worked with me to not only answer like specific questions and go over, you know, debriefing different calls, but also, you know, practicing speaking, as well as finding outlets for my educational stipend to do a public speaking course, or to do a communications workshop. And so I think that that's what I'm really excited about the year ahead is, yes, building my client services skills, but I think it's also learning even more about how we can lean on each other to accomplish our own goals, and how that is like aligned to the work that we do professionally.
It's really exciting. Anyone else want to jump in?
I can jump in. We recently are launched or kicked off a project for middle grades CTE, which stands for Continuing and Technical Education. It is a project that is where the topic is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I've worked with middle school students a lot, and I'm really, really excited to see where that goes. So in terms of what I'm looking forward to, I think that that's something that I'm really, really excited about, and just the amount of background research that will go into it, getting to visit different sites across the country. It is something that I think I've always wanted to do, and I'm really excited to see where this project goes. I'm working on that along with Lisa-Marie and Jon as well, and I'm excited to get to learn a lot from the both of you, because I don't think we've worked on projects together before. So getting to work with other members of the LL team will also be great.
Great. Anyone else? Lisa, do you want to hop in?
Yeah. So something I've been wanting to work on is my strategy and project management skills, along with writing. And it's been something that's been really helpful is leaning on the different team members for assistance. Like Monica and Delana are my accountability partners for my goals and what I'm trying to develop. So we have a thread and I reach out and I let them know like what I'm up to. And so I think the thing that I'm most excited for is continuing to build out my like design program design, because a lot of our projects we have our clients and we work on that, but I also think I like to be kind of like an entrepreneur, so I really like our work-based learning and being able to work with different team members and learning that I enjoy designing programs like in the opposite way, like internally. And so I think for this year I'm really excited to take a project and really expand it and work with different people on the team to learn how to do that and see, where the project can go. How do we expand it to be instead of a summer internship, a year internship, thinking about it being an annual thing. So that's something I'm really excited for. And all of that comes together and that I could use strategy skills, project management skills, and then also write up what I learned from that experience.
Great. Logan, I don't know if you want to round us out or.
Sure, happy to. So I think, a lot of the work of the senior associate is kind of executing on scopes and projects that are kind of given to you. You might have some role in shaping it early in the process, but a lot of it is kind of executing well on what you're given. And I think where I'd love to grow more is in kind of increasingly taking on a client counselor role. So where can we be a real resource to the client that we're working with to either build on the work or add a next phase in a really interesting way. It's really helping them kind of advocate for their interest and their work, either within their own, if it's government, within their own agency, within their own kind of philanthropic organization. So really being a resource beyond the direct scope of the project to really make the change that we're trying to drive really stick.
Yeah, no, I'm one, really appreciative. I think if it's kind of scary to share like what you want to get better at, but also I think like that's sort of emblematic of you all and like inspiring to see the excitement about growing in the profession that you've chosen. And also I think how each of the examples that you cited really connects to not just your own personal growth, but also impact. I think sometimes I wish y'all are more selfish, but I think it's a really good example of, I think, how we do what we do. In that same vein of the how, I think you all like shared some really interesting things that you want to work on and develop, but like, I'm curious if you could share a little bit more about how the work itself, the team around you, like how does that actually happen? Like, what are some of the things that really make growth and development possible or make them stick? They can be formal, informal. There's, I think, a lot of things that we do very intentionally. Some things we probably do accidentally, if I'm being honest. But I would open this up to everybody. But Monica, I'll put you on the spot again to maybe kick us off with any thoughts you have.
Sure. So I think that when thinking about like the supports for growth and development, I'll talk a little bit. I think I talked a little bit about how internally I do feel, supported in those goals. I think when it comes to project goals, I think that the idea of like sustained impact and like further collaboration is something that I, really want to make sure that we have it in our projects, and we already do have it in our projects. But I think that the way in which those goals are supported, I think, is just an openness from the team to think about the Open Innovation Challenge, or think about the way that we do strategy, and knowing that there is absolutely structure to it, but the freedom to say, oh, is this in scope? Could we do it this way? Could we do it this way? And so I think like an encouragement to think about things differently when you have the time and space is, I think, something that I find particularly helpful when we're thinking about like, what is the maximum impact that this project can have. And I've been really it's been really exciting and encouraging to see not only internally that people are excited to try out different things, but also that, you know, subject matter experts and our client is also excited about trying, you know, trying things in a different way. So I would say that when that is possible, it's really helpful, but I also like the idea that there is a scope and that if we do things out of scope, that is good to know. That's something that we need to negotiate. But it kind of keeps those guardrails around what is possible and making sure that we reach our goal, even if we pivot a little bit.
I love that. Anyone else want to build on that?
I can jump in quickly on that. I think one thing that I think a lot about with development is, you know, I feel like a lot of support from management and our kind of management team, but also there's a ton of lateral support that we've talked about, everybody kind of jumping in for each other. And I think the real thing that I appreciate about the team is the diversity of experiences and perspectives that they bring. You know, I've worked on kind of internal consulting teams before where everybody has a management consulting background, which is useful in some ways because you all speak the same language and you have like a very shared kind of vocabulary and way of working. But it becomes a bit of an echo chamber. And I feel like the diversity of experiences that we have on the team at every level really benefits the kind of diversity of thought that we have. And the curiosity and willingness to challenge each other on all of the concepts, I think has been a real benefit.
Yeah, I also agree that the support from the team and management is helpful. I really like the guidance that we have through our like documentation about like we have like different checkpoints where we check in on our professional development goals, and that's been really helpful because it's easy to set a goal and then kind of like forget about it. But to have check-ins with your people leader and be able to talk about your goals and just be honest about what's working, what's not working is really helpful. I also think in our Slack channel, people share a lot of information, and that's been helpful in my growth as well as just learning from other people. There's a lot of a wealth of knowledge that the team has, especially that a lot of people have come from different backgrounds. It's really helpful to support my growth.
Another thing that I mean, I agree with everything that Logan and Lisa said. I think there's a lot of really good record keeping in terms of like keeping examples of past things, and that has been a really good guide in terms of like templates of things that I have to do that I might not be familiar with simply because I'm not from a consulting background, and that has been really helpful. I agree with the touch points on professional development and the different review cycles throughout the year. Those have been really helpful. And sometimes, you know, seeing those goals and like the benchmarks that you should be hitting in terms of, you know, what does a proficient senior associate look like has been really helpful as well, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, especially if you come from a non-traditional consulting background, and that has been really helpful for me in terms of not feeling lost or overwhelmed or like not knowing what direction to walk in.
Yeah, I love also how all of the things that you mentioned, I think are very tangible, but also sort of intangibly reflect the culture that we aspire to. I think the values that we are really trying to live out every day. So that it brings me back to that topic. And I think, Logan, you actually at the top mentioned, you know, some of the things that came true based on what you saw, what you heard in your interview process. And I'm curious on the flip side of that, did anything surprise you about the Luminary Labs culture? Was anything unexpected?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I think what was unexpected was, I think relates kind of to my last answer around just like the diversity of backgrounds. And I could, you know, the first step when I was interviewing was looking at the profiles of all the current employees on the website. And so I could get a sense of that. But I think that was one surprising thing that came in when I was coming in. and the way that that manifested in like the levels of collaboration was really interesting. I wasn't used to working with a content and community team and a communications team and designer, all kind of interwoven on the same project. I think that's a really hard thing to do well, and I think it was a learning curve for me of how to bring in the right insights at the right points within the team. That's not in a kind of a direct strategy kind of hierarchy. So I think that was a learning experience of like, how do you best bring in the right people? How do you structure review time so that everyone has the right level of input? But then once, when you get it right, the projects really sing. And I think that was, I'm still learning how to do that well, but I think that was a kind of unexpected benefit for me.
Yeah, me too. But you know that. So anyone else have anything that surprised you or was unexpected, the culture that you've now come to be a part of?
I think I was really surprised how nerdy everyone was, which in a good way, but I felt at home, so it wasn't in a bad way, but that was something that I wasn't expecting. Like I got a hint of that in reading the bios because everyone is so interesting. But then to actually come in and this things that are like obscure that I might mention other people know, and then we have like a full conversation. So that was surprising. I also think the other, I guess based on my interviews and reading the website, I knew that we were doing good work here, but I guess I was very impressed with like the thoroughness of the work that we do and how thoughtful everyone is and being like precise and everything. And that I really appreciate because I think it's important to do your best and put your best work forward. And so that, not necessarily like surprising, like, but I didn't think it was like to the level of what I read from the website. It really impressed me and I enjoyed it.
Monica or Natalia, anything that you want to add there? Or
I'll just add something really quick. To quote Lisa, it seems like everyone is someone that you would want to have at a dinner party. And so I think that when we're thinking about like, what does the culture look like? I think there really is really interesting, engaged people that want to support both laterally as well as like vertically.
yeah, actually, I don't know if a dinner party with us would be fun or insufferable, but it would be fun for me at least. Maybe in a related vein to that, I think, again, in the spirit of show don't tell, I'm curious to hear in the time that you've been at Luminary Labs, like if there's a moment that you really feel like embodied one or more of our values. I think it's something that we've talked about a lot. I think it's something that we both see show up in our work and something that we aspire to live out more in, every day, every project, every client relationship. But what's a moment that you feel like actually has brought those values to life for you? Natalia, I'll send this over to you first.
I think that overall the staff at Luminary Labs is very open to feedback, and that I think is something that is really, really important, and something that I really wanted from a workplace. We have had like not too many, but a couple of moments where something has happened that we all want to talk together as a group, and I think it's never been a moment where we have felt, or at least I have felt like talked down to, or felt like like there wasn't a space for us to give feedback. I felt like whenever we have faced something that might have been hard, there's always like, what could we do better? How can we improve? And I think that is reflected in the way that the company keeps improving and in the way that the feedback is received from us. I've never given feedback that has been shut down or that has been outright rejected. And it's something that I hadn't experienced before. I've definitely been in places where feedback is, sort of goes into a void or is sort of returned to me. And at Luminary Labs, I feel like we're always looking for opportunities for growth as a company, not just personally. And I find that really important.
I think that it's so well said, and like that spirit of continuous improvement is something we say a lot, but also I think something that we try to practice what we preach there. Lisa, did you want to jump in and add something?
Sure. One of our values is the thoughtful and considerate, and that I've really seen in many ways, even from like my first week. Actually, even before I started, someone, Mercedes, reached out to me on LinkedIn and welcomed me to the team, and that really this made me feel welcomed. And then the first week, I come in from Long Island, and Sarah, our CEO, saw me in early and was like, "Oh, like what's going on?" And I told her how I travel in, and she was asking me like trying to figure out like the train times and maybe there's another time I could come in. So I thought that was really considerate, thinking about where I'm traveling from. And then also the other thing that I like is that I think is thoughtful and considerate is that Sarah had mentioned like that we're all multi-talented people and have interests outside of work, and everyone's been very supportive and different creative like ideas that I have. And even last week, Monica spent like an hour and a half helping me think through a creative problem that I had. And I thought that was just so kind, because she does that like even through work, but even with my ideas outside of work, I thought that was really kind to do that.
Monica, do you want to add anything
Officially,
there?
it was just really fun. That I had a really, really good time, and I'm open to it anytime. I think when we're thinking about also thoughtful and considerate, I think the thing that comes to mind is when I had transitioned from a contractor to a full-time employee, and Jana, our president, was I was talking to her about a project, and I mentioned that we'd had a miscommunication, and that actually led to this insight, and that was great. And I went to keep talking, and she stopped me and she goes, "That wasn't a miscommunication. We just haven't worked together long enough for that even to be a miscommunication." And I really appreciated her taking something that I even thought was neutral and saying, "That's not even like, don't put any negative spin on this. This is just, we are taking time to figure out how to work together." And so I that was something that I never would have considered as just as a factor, but is completely accurate. And so I really appreciated, I just appreciate the team whenever they take a step back and say, this is related to this, or this is part of our learning process, or this is part of our change process. And so, yeah, I think I appreciate the constant striving for thoughtful consideration.
Yeah, I think that sort of relates very closely for me to another kind of embodiment of multiple of our values around kind of how we think about work-life balance, how we sort of structure our work with that in mind. I think trying to solve for that trade-off that isn't actually a trade-off between having a rewarding career and having a life and having agency over that life outside of work. So I guess as I see us getting close to time, this may be our last question, but I'll encourage folks in, again, for future AMAs, we'd love to get any questions that you'd like to see answered in future in the Q&A box. So please do take advantage of that opportunity. And to start to at least approach closing us out, I think the important topic of work-life balance, what does that mean in your mind at Luminary Labs, and what's a way that you've seen that play out? Natalia, Lisa, actually, I'll go to you first, since I think I called on Natalia less first. I'll give her a little bit of a breather.
Yeah, I think work-life, thinking about the combination of work-life here is that you're in work and then you leave work and you could go off and enjoy yourself and do life, and you don't have to be thinking about work and stressed. And so that's something that I think when I think about work-life balance here, it's about doing really good work in the time that we're in the office and then being able to do whatever it is you want to do outside of work. I think I've seen that just in people, like I mentioned, just encouraging everyone's creative interests, like outside of work. That's really like nurtured and appreciated. And then a real good example, my first week, I feel like, I don't know, I need to stop reading the articles, but like articles tell you like you need to be in your, I don't know, your first day, you got to stay the whole time, stay late. And so I think it was like my first day and I was like, I need to be here until like maybe 6:15 to show them like a go-getter and like all this. And I was trying to do that. And Jon actually said to me, he's like, you know, like it's important to go home. You shouldn't like do this, something along those lines. And he basically told me like, go home. You don't have to stay this late, and you don't need to. I didn't have to put on a show. It was just like do your work, and then if you're finished, you can leave. You don't have to stay until 6 just to show that you're in your seat. And so I appreciated that he, you know, mentioned to me that I didn't have to do that, and that was like my first week, and that to me showed the importance of work-life balance.
I come from a profession that famously lacks work-life balance. So I came in and I was like, anything, like if I get a lunch break, I consider that work-life balance. But to be honest, I think Luminary Labs is really, really intentional when it comes to that. I've never felt the need to hide, for lack of a better word, if I have an appointment in the middle of the day, or if I need to go somewhere, or if I like need to take my cats to the vet. Like I've never needed to like go somewhere in secret, because I feel like I can always say, you know, how can I structure my day in a way that I can still continue to live my life. It's extremely refreshing to be encouraged to sort of be a person. And even when I've occasionally like sent emails late at night, I've said, you know, I've been told like, you don't have to work after hours. It's like, you can log off at 6. And so I think the intentionality, and especially for someone like me who is used to working way beyond my work hours, having someone encourage me to end my workday has been extremely helpful. And I think it's made me a better worker overall.
I am cognizant in hearing all of this that it is for those who are watching the recording, it's a Friday approaching 1 p.m. So I, one, am grateful that you all took the time to share a peek behind the curtain, and also want to make sure that we get you back to your day jobs so you have a wonderful weekend to enjoy. So I guess the last thing I'll close this out with is you've all teased kind of this nerdy culture in our Slack channel. So I deliver the goods. What's something that you nerded out on outside of work recently that you're particularly either proud or ashamed of? And is there anything you're looking forward to this weekend? So I will cede control and open the floor to whoever wants to go first on that.
I think I might have the weirdest nerded out answer that just pops to mind. I recently got
You
down
always
a really
set a high
long,
bar.
I went down a long Wikipedia rabbit hole on the issues of burying nuclear waste and how to signal to future generations that this is a dangerous substance when language might have changed in a millennium. So there are all these like different ideas of how do you use pictography. One involved breeding cats to react to the radioactiveness and glow different colors. One was around creating a priesthood of priests to pass on the narrative of the radioactive waste. Anyway, I highly recommend you dive into that rabbit hole. But this weekend, similarly nerdy, I think I'm a big board game person. So having a good board game night with friends on some really esoteric strategic board games.
Do any of the board games involve nuclear fallout, or be a nice dovetail?
I'll look into that.
Okay. All right. Keep us posted. Anybody else?
Nerdiest answer for sure. what I've recently been looking into is like personal knowledge management systems. And Ben, one of our teammates, told me about a new tool called Tana. And so I just been like watching all these YouTube videos on how to build a second brain. And so that's what I've been nerding out on this week.
All right, Monica, Natalia, I know the bar is high, but if you want to add anything, we've got a few seconds left here.
I don't think I can live up to Logan and Lisa, but I'm Colombian and I'm a native Spanish speaker, but I've never read 100 Years of Solitude in Spanish. And for Hispanic Heritage Month, I made it a goal to read it, and I'm almost done. So that's my exciting nerdy thing that I'm finishing up this weekend.
We need to do book club. That's been on my list to reread for a while. So,
No.
All right, Monica, last
I really
word.
wish we just ended with Natalia, but okay. I would say the thing that I've nerded out the most on, maybe in the last like 6 months, is just organizational psychology and like change management. It's something that just is deeply fascinating to me, and I've like curated my LinkedIn and newsletter intake to my email for those types of emails. And so it's something that is just I constantly am reading about. This weekend, semi-related to organization of people, we just got a new apartment and thinking about, that has an outdoor space. And so thinking about we'll probably brainstorm a bunch of different ways that we can like utilize that space to have like dinner parties and book clubs and things like that. So it'll be a brainstorming weekend.
And this is why I'm so grateful to work with all of you, and very grateful to everybody in the virtual audience for joining us. I hope you will join us again in the physical or virtual event, and thanks for taking some time out of your Friday.